This morning right here on Citizen TV Power Breakfast. I'm still in studio with Kimani Wamatangi, Senator Kiambu, Chris Wamalwa, MP Kiminini, Dan Manzo, MP Makueni, and Didmas Barasa, MP Kimilili. We continue looking at these headlines, and just before the break, of course, we were discussing, and the main question is, now that the Supreme Court detailed judgment did not have any mention of any individual found culpable of any wrongdoing within IEBC, will NASA still pursue that line that it cannot go to the elections, the repeat presidential elections, with certain people still working for the IEBC? NASA is clear on those people, the names, and even they are listed on the dailies. CEO Ezra Chiloba, ICT Director James Muhati, Voter Education Director Immaculate Kasait, and Legal Director Praxidis Tororei. Will NASA still insist, now that the Supreme Court stayed away from this and said that no one person can be held culpable of this, will NASA still pursue that line that they will not go for elections with these people still working for IEBC? Dan Manzo, do you have an answer to that?
Yes, first I want to say that the court did not delve into matters which were not specifically pleaded before them, but it gave an indication that if you go and floor the elections again, then we will still give a judgment the way we have given. There is consistency. You know, now we have already complained to the DPP. He is aware. He has a letter. He knows election offences have been committed, and therefore those particular persons must be prosecuted for those elections. What we are insisting is that so long as things are as they used to be or as they were, then there's no need to go and do an election whereby you know what will happen. And you can see internally the chairman has already been acting. He's already, you know, send memos to certain people asking to CEO specifically asking certain matters to be explained. He has also sent some people home, and again, when a criminal investigation or a prosecution begins on a particular public officer, you know, the process is that you have to step aside till the matter will be concluded in court. So there is enough legal mechanism to make sure that unless somebody tries to manipulate things, that action will be taken before the expiry of the 60 days. And but should action not be taken, yes, then of course there is no way there is going to be an election.
And the question we are asking is because there are only 35 days left before expiry of that 60-day period as prescribed by the Supreme Court. Senator Kimani Wamatangi, or let me come to Didmas Barasa. Does it worry you that NASA is still insistent on pushing this line that certain people have to leave IEBC before they are part of the elections?
Yes, I want to tell Dan Manzo that we have disciplinary mechanisms that institutions have within their own internal systems. And when somebody makes a mistake within an institution, we have what we call a criminal threshold before the matter is referred to outside agencies for prosecution. Otherwise, before it meets certain threshold, the IEBC has its own internal mechanism. However, even as in Jubilee, we are also, we also want IEBC to conduct free and fair elections. But what we are saying is that NASA should not take on that we're not going to participate in these elections until so and so has been vacated from office. They went to the Supreme Court to nullify the election of Uhuru Kenyatta, which the court did, and their main driving factor will be that we want fresh elections within the confines of the Constitution and the regulations. So if they are justified to complain, but the complaint must be based on the fact that IEBC is unable to conduct elections within the confines of law, and not to remove this and they remove this. What they should do is that they should engage IEBC. They should ask IEBC to confirm to them what they have put in place to ensure that the election will be free and fair, by returning themselves into DPP, into the CID to investigate the IEBC, say, prosecute this one. I think they are just graduating into irritants.
Yes, and the Senator, of course, this should also concern Jubilee, because even as CJ Maraga said yesterday, and I quote, whenever called upon to adjudicate, the court will reach the same judgment if their anomalies are not rectified, irrespective of who the aspirants may be. The fact that IEBC, in conducting the August 8th process, there were a lot of irregularities, it should concern the Jubilee as well, that the IEBC in this instance should be well able to conduct the repeat presidential poll without any of these irregularities. Are you confident they can?
You see, Fred, let's have a few issues very clear. One, the Constitution mandates IEBC to be the body in charge of supervising, organizing, and carrying out of elections. That's an oversighting elections. That's one. Two, the Supreme Court, in its own ruling and its own wisdom yesterday, still conferred that mandate, and they did not deviate at all. Neither did they make any other side orders that IEBC should either in this format or in this format, save for the fact that, and which is factual, as they said that if a similar matter is referred to them back with similar claims, they said that they would arrive at the same decision. But they still preferred that mandate to the body that is recognized by the Constitution, that is IEBC, believing that it still has the capacity. Now see, what we are saying is very simple, and that's why I referenced my opinion earlier to what was said by NASA, because once you listen to them, then you understand where they are going. They said that within 60 days, if and when that time limit expires, then they will be looking for a president. That's what they were saying, because then the president Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta will not be having the mandate to rule, which of course, one, as you know, is a fallacy as far as our Constitution is concerned. Read Article 134C, which is very clear on the definition and extent of an incumbency president. And secondly, even if there will be a scenario, God forbid, where an election is not held in 60 days, the IEBC is still empowered by law to move to a court and seek another date and be given another date. And there is no one time when it is envisaged that there will be the scenario or the canon they dream of, whereby we would be in a constitution paralysis, and they would have to go fishing for one of their own to come and get the nusu mukate they seek. But let me say this. Let me say this. And you had them insisting that if the servers were opened, then we would be knowing the truth. I want to remind them that the same judges, all 5 who are present, never differed on one thing, that the sovereign will of the people as supposed to be expressed was indeed expressed, and a result exists inside those ballot boxes, not the servers, in the ballot boxes. And I want to assure you, gentlemen, that now we will pursue then this line, and take this from me, Fred, I am moving to court between today and tomorrow to seek orders to have those ballot boxes opened and the ballots inside they are counted. So that for purposes of record and as far as our Constitution and Article 136 access to information is concerned, then we have that information, and we know precisely where is the truth. Because so we can stop this common story about a situation whereby there is no where there is some inclination or some thought that in the servers there exists the will of the people while it is resident in the ballot box. And that is why you found the judges reflecting that the ballot boxes should be served the way they are.
Senator, point made. Chris Wamalwa, what do you say to that?
Fred, we need order, and Senator Matangi cannot just come on the TV show and start misleading Kenyans. For instance, when you listen, what's wrong with this guy? You think you're on the Kiambu market? Do the listening. This guy comes and misleads the public. He says Article 136 access to information, which is wrong. Access to information is Article 35 of the Constitution. We don't want him to start misleading people here, and you just leave him alone. Can you listen? Can you listen?
It is a constitutional requirement to a manual that anybody can go and seek.
Fred, I can help him a little bit. First of all, because if you wanted any explanation from
Supreme Court, let's not waste time discussing things that are not important. The focus on what is matter that are beautiful in Kenyans. We are discussing issues like
I just want to state a fact of law that if you had an opportunity to come to court, even as amicus, and bring up that issue, if you deal with it now, there's something called res judicata. When a matter has already been dealt with by a court, you can't open other proceedings, so you'll be stopped from pursuing any proceedings which have already been canvassed and a judgment given. There is no way you will go to court, to the same court, and deal with the same matter. So you are totally stopped. There's only one order now. We must have elections in 90 days.
60 days. Another person to speak, boss.
Senator, you'll get your time. Senator Wamatangi, for now, please maintain your pace.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, now that Senator Wamatangi insists that NASA are talking about a constitutional crisis, we only have 35 days left before this 60-day window actually comes to an end. You're trying to justify and say you have your own interpretation of the Constitution with what the crisis will portend. I am sure NASA has a different interpretation. Chris Wamalwa, what is your interpretation once, if at all, we get to that crisis, because it is a real concern? 35 days, NASA says we might not go to the elections if IEBC has people still working for it. But the fact is, IEBC has no basis to let these people go. Apart from the demands by NASA, the Supreme Court has not demanded that anyone be let go. So chances are there is a standoff, there is a stalemate.
I think, Fred, the most important thing is, as clearly stipulated in the Constitution, it is IEBC which is responsible to conduct and supervise elections. And the Supreme Court ruling was very clear that the repeat of presidential elections must be done within the 60 days. And I don't want us to start casting aspersions here. The issue was illegality and irregularities. So it's the responsibility of IEBC to go further and be able to rectify so that we don't have these recurrences of these illegalities and irregularities. From our NASA side, what we are demanding is this. From IEBC in terms of preparedness, what have they done to assure the presidential candidates that these things of irregularities and illegalities are not going to recur? One, the people who have been responsible for this, even if the Supreme Court didn't go further to be able to identify, it is the responsibility of IEBC to examine within their internal frameworks who is held responsible. If it's an issue to do with ICT, for instance, who is responsible for the ICT? The backstops are the CEO, but the CEO will be able to cascade it down and go to the ICT director. For instance, Fred, for example, the issue of the Form 34S, it was very illegal to have announced the presidential elections without having all the Form 34S for purposes of verification. And it's clear in Article 86 of the Constitution that IEBC must ensure when it comes to elections, it is simple, accountable, verifiable, and accurate. So if you are not assured of these issues, why should we go to elections and yet this has not been rectified?
I would ask the same question to Jubilee. Didmas Barasa, are you assured that IEBC is now capable of avoiding all these irregularities as listed by even the Supreme Court? And they're listed on the front page of the Daily Nation, 7 of them, failures of the IEBC. Are you certain as Jubilee that you will not find yourselves in the same problem that you found yourself in on August 8th?
I think, Fred, if you look at the highlights from the ruling, it revolved around very basic, very flimsy irregularities. Like some forms were not original, some forms were not signed. This can be fixed in a few hours. They already have the regulations that explains to them what they should do. And I don't think we can plunge this country into a crisis by not holding elections as soon as possible. Because, I mean, surely these are very clear regulations. Those that the Supreme Court were saying that they were sending results via text messages instead of scanned forms. I think you don't need to be taught again to rocket science to begin scanning those forms. There are very basic mistakes that can be rectified and we move forward. But I would urge my NASA colleagues to tone down in their demands of introducing fresh demands. They should hold IEBC accountable on the basis of complying with the existing regulations. This is not the time of introducing new demands.
Because the push appears to try and ensure that IEBC is up to the job appears to be coming from NASA. Jubilee appears to be approaching it hands off. That it appears you're more confident on IEBC's ability, and that's a question. I'm too concerned that if IEBC dares repeat these same failures, that we'll be back in the same spot.
You know, our engagement with IEBC is not giving them fresh demands, but it's in the basis of understanding what they have put in place to ensure that they comply with the regulations and the law. And that is, I mean, you can go there anytime. Even now I can go to IEBC, I can check to see what they have put in place as a client public. But we are not going there to tell them that we want these people out, we want this one out, if this one is not going to be out. And you cannot therefore also come up to the conclusion that IEBC will conduct these fresh presidential elections with not conformance with the law. Until that one is done, I mean, that is premature, and they will just be bringing things which you know they are not achievable.
Okay. Bwanamanzo, because we want to come to the end of this discussion, and I'll give each one of you a minute or so to give your final submissions. But on this issue of a constitutional crisis, which Senator Wamatangi introduced and said it's been totally misread by the NASA side of the coalition, because we've seen headlines, even people suggesting a caretaker government to be led by certain individuals. What is your interpretation as NASA? If we fail to go for elections in the next 35 days, what happens as a lawyer?
Yes, first I want to tell you that IEBC now has two stakeholders, which is Jubilee and NASA, or the two presidential candidates. Those are stakeholders with IEBC. And when IEBC is preparing for elections for those stakeholders, it must engage them according to the law, must have a close engagement so that each party is happy and is fully briefed what IEBC is doing, and any concerns raised by each party are fully satisfied by IEBC. In the event, in the unlikely event that 60 days expire and there is no election, automatically there is a constitutional crisis. It means the term of the incumbency president comes to an end, and unless the court has directed otherwise, or somebody has approached the court, either IEBC or any of those stakeholders has approached the court for further orders on that, then automatically means the presidency, which is the president and his deputy who are incumbent for now, falls off. And you have to have a clear government inform maybe the speaker. The constitution also says where those two by some legal means are not there, you could have probably have the speaker or agree on a matter. But that is in the extreme. And I believe before we get to that sort of constitutional crisis, which we should look in the future when we are amending our constitution to take care of that sort of thing, it can be handled right now to avert that crisis by making sure that the court order is complied with, that whatever the court has ordered is complied with, whatever the Supreme Court has said is complied with. And if we comply with the Supreme Court, if IEBC complies, there will be nobody in contempt. If prosecutions are done, it means whoever will be prosecuted after investigations will not be part of the team which will conduct the next election.
That's good enough. 30 seconds each, strictly because we need to give time to Chef Ali and also Concord Delagons. We still have the cars. We need to see how beautiful they are in anticipation for that great event. 30 seconds each. Senator, final submissions. Please stick to the time.
I want to spend my 30 minutes reading. 30 seconds reading my reading. I mean, please advise Chris to stop panicking. Every time when I speak,
Senator, please go ahead.
You've been misleading the public.
I want to spend my 30 seconds reading exactly what I said. That on the right to access to information, that the Constitution says that every citizen has a right to access information held by the state and information held by any other person and required for the exercise or protection of any right of fundamental freedom. And every person has the right to correction or deletion of untrue or misleading information that affects that person. That is my basis. That I've said that I'll be moving to make sure that this article is relevant to me as a citizen of this country. It is going to be upheld by ensuring that those ballot boxes are open so that we can see the truth resident in those ballot boxes. And I want to assure my friends here that IEBC, save for the unrealistic demands they are making about removing this company or this company and this individual and bringing other players in the game, IEBC has said it is able to organize that election. We are insisting that IEBC must give us an election within 60 days, and we are ready for it.
Thank you, Senator. Chris Wamalwa, 30 seconds.
I think one, I want to say that it's good the Senator has now quoted the right article in terms of the right to information. He'll stop misleading Kenyans, irrespective of what is in the ballot. If the process was fraudulent, obviously the output is fraudulent. So, notwithstanding whatever is in the ballot, it doesn't make any sense. The issue is to IBC, is back to you. In line with the Constitution, you are the one to conduct the elections. But those irregularities, those illegalities that were there, that were spelled out by the Supreme Court, it's my humble request that you call upon both sides of the divide, you sit down on the table, rectify those loopholes, so that we'll be able to go for the elections within the 60 days. This is our country, we don't have any other country.
Bwana Didmas Barasa.
I think Kenyans have been politicking for a very long time. And we look upon IEBC to provide leadership in terms of managing the elections of this country. What they need to do now is they need to develop a checklist of what the irregularities were, as pointed out by the Supreme Court ruling. What does the regulations and the Act say that they should conduct the elections, within the provision of those regulations, and what they will have put in place to ensure that they do not repeat what the irregularities that happened in the previous nullified elections, and they can even begin to engage stakeholders, political parties, based on that document, so that Kenyans can be sure that now we are going to have a free and fair elections on the 17th of October.
Thank you, Bwana Didmas Barasa. Finally, Dan Manzo, 30 seconds.
I just want to tell Kenyans that there is hope, that we are very happy now we have a strong judiciary, and the judiciary should be respected with its decisions, so that we have a strong institution. And the most important is Kenya is greater than all of us. And for every leader who has been elected by the people is also there because God has allowed it to be so. And therefore we should take care of Kenya. Let Kenya come first, not leaders first, and not people imposing demands on the others, so that it looks as if it is of right. It must be this way. We should bring Kenya first. We should take care of our institutions. And I wish all Kenyans a good day.
Thank you. Thank you. Our time is up. Senator Kimani Wamatangi, Kiambu County, Chris Wamalwa, MP Kiminini, Dan Manzo, MP Makueni, Didmas Barasa, MP Kimilili. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been our news review. Even as my panelists continue to squabble, that has been the news review. They will continue because even the headlines disagree. Next up, Concours d'Elegance to get to see the vehicles as well. Chef Ali is in the house cooking up some nice breakfast. From Meets Good Morning,